Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Home Tech. I'm Seth Johnson, and this week joined again by Jason Griffin. Jason, how you doing, man?
I'm good, Seth. Good to be back in the saddle here.
Yeah, it's so crazy move that you had.
Yeah, not too eventful for the most part, but I got really close to the finish line, and this was a week ago Sunday, and so I was really planning, as listeners to our show know, we record typically on Tuesday nights, and so this was Sunday, and I still had a lot of work to do to get out of the old apartment, so I was over there on a Sunday, and, let me just acknowledge one thing really quickly, Seth. Parking in a fire lane is a bad idea. I admit that. That's a bad idea. But with that out of the way, we're talking about a fire lane in a very quiet corner of a very quiet parking lot in a very quiet part of Denver. And so I was parked there and was inside literally packing up the last of the things that I wanted to load up for that day, some dishes and stuff. And I came out and lo and behold, my truck was gone. And that was pretty devastating. So I got my truck towed and man, that just really threw me for a loop. So set me back a couple of days and I had to push my involvement with HomeTech to make up for it. It was pretty disappointing.
Well, I guess you got to get...
I don't know
what to say. You live and you learn. Don't park in the fire zones, people.
Anyways, excited to be back. Really great episode. We had Keenan Lewis on from Ubiquiti, and I was really excited for this conversation. I've been looking forward to it for a while. Ubiquiti, clearly a company that we've spoken about a number of times over the couple of years that we've been doing the show. Definitely a company that's very well regarded amongst home technology enthusiasts and professionals, and they recently announced their Amplifi product line. And so Keenan was kind enough to take some time out of his busy schedule to join us on the show and talk about that, and we look forward to sharing that conversation with you. So definitely stay tuned and be sure to listen to that. Really thought it was a great conversation and provided some nice insights onto the new product.
Yeah, definitely. I guess before we get started, we got some housekeeping to do. There's a couple of patrons we've got to give some shout outs to. Since you hadn't been on the show, we kind of missed one week, and then last week your issue came up with parking in fire zones, and
don't do that.
So we've got some people that donated at the $5 level, and of course that gives you a shout out on the podcast. So we want to thank Hans Roning and Daniel Bates. I'd say thanks, guys, very much. They both donated at that $5 above level, and we really appreciate the support of the show. If you wanted to support the show, you can go over to HomeTech.fm/support, and there's a link to the Patreon page, so you can support us that way, or you can go to iTunes and just for free, there's no cost to it, go to iTunes and give us a rating on iTunes. That really helps people find the show as well. Good stars, bad stars, doesn't matter. We really like the feedback on there. But if you leave us some bad stars and we do better, give us a good rating.
Yeah.
So, right now we've got all like 5 stars, which is pretty good. And there's some good feedback on there. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to echo what you said and really thank Hans and Daniel for taking the time and being generous with their donations there and becoming patrons of the show. We really do appreciate it. It means a lot. And so thank you guys. And like Seth said, if you're interested in learning more about how you can support the show, buy Seth some coffee to get him through some of those late night editing sessions. You can do that for as little as $1 a month at HomeTech.fm/support. Get some more information on that. Or like Seth said, a quick review on iTunes. Always really appreciated. But let's move on. We've got a couple more little shout outs we want to do here and a few news stories before we get into our interview with Keenan Lewis. And the first thing we wanted to do is give a quick mention to Chris with Live Install. And Chris is a great friend of the show, regular guest. We have him on to really come and talk about happenings across the pond. He does a great job of covering that and really has a great social media presence and really does a lot of cool things with the integrator and home tech professional community. And so we wanted to give a shout out to an event that Chris is doing in conjunction with Loxone. I'm never quite sure how to pronounce that.
I have no idea either.
But looks like a cool event. They're doing it at Loxone's headquarters. And this will be on, let me find the date here, Monday, July 18th. And this is obviously for our listeners across the pond, of which I know we have quite a few, thanks in large part to Chris and his efforts in sharing the show. And so we'll include an Eventbrite link to this event on our show notes at HomeTech.fm/117. But go check it out. Looks like they're going to have a fun day planned over at the Loxone headquarters with some talks and some networking and some high-level discussion about where all of this is headed.
Yeah, and that Loxone product, it's a really cool system. I've been meaning to try and get some of those guys on the show, and I've actually talked to their U.S. trainer, I guess, for probably about 3 hours one day, because he and I go way back into the Elan world, back when the Z systems were around, and we had some good war stories to talk about.
Back in the day.
Yeah. So, but he was actually, what was funny is he was actually in the old Elan offices. But I think he said they were actually moving, they were in and looking to move him to New York. I'm not sure. I'm not sure where their presence is right now in the U.S., but this looks like the UK office. I know they have an absolutely beautiful office headquarters outside of Munich. I want to say about an hour or two away in Austria. And I was trying to get there, really wanted to get there, but it was on a family vacation, so couldn't think away.
So that one didn't quite go over, huh?
Yeah, I mean, we were having fun. There's a lot of beer in Munich, turns out.
Priorities.
That was the exact word I was about to say.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I wanted to thank you and Richard for putting out a great show last week on WWDC and talking about all the Apple news. Really appreciate Richard stepping in there on short notice to make up for my my little mishap and my inability to join you. And I thought it was a great episode. Wanted to give a quick mention to an article that I put up on residential systems. As listeners may or may not know, I'm doing a bi-weekly blog now with residential systems and very excited to be doing that. And put a piece up this week on a few of my thoughts about Apple and what came out of WWDC, and really focused primarily on Apple's decision to finally come out with a HomeKit app, which I think you can't, from where I sit, overstate the significance of that. I think that, HomeKit has really been focused on interoperability and making things reliable and easy to integrate, but we've just kind of ignored this key question, and I have to admit being guilty of it myself and not really talking about it or thinking deeply on, well, who is going to own the interface? I think we've made a couple allusions to that over the last couple of years, but really it was a key omission in hindsight now that Apple has come out with this home app. It just looks to me like a glaring thing and what took them so long. And obviously they had the reasons, and some of those, we won't get into all of that here. But the point that I wanted to make is that I think, this is a huge deal that Apple has finally come out with their own app. And I think really shows that Apple is serious in the long term about the smart home as part of their strategy.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about Apple too, they're not the ones to come out with the buggy software on day one. This was a HomeKit. As much as we've talked about it, and we've stressed this too, HomeKit is a framework. It's nothing more than an SDK on the iPhone. Now it allows you to talk to other devices and that are in the HomeKit ecosystem, and that's awesome. But it's totally geeky, nerdy stuff. Like the interface that they released, like you're saying, that's what we were all waiting on. And it's here. It'll be here. And you were 100% right. Like this is something we've got to wake up to and start taking a look at a little bit harder, because it's iOS 10 comes out, like I was saying last week. There are 500 million devices on day one that'll probably have the home app sitting right there on the home screen. And that's crazy to think about. Yeah, it's crazy to think about as an integrator that this is the mainstream that we're looking at. What was your Richard kind of asked me this last week, and I kind of wanted to ask you too. What was your what did you like what you saw, I guess, out of WWDC? Did you like?
I did. Okay. Yeah. I think that opening up Siri to third-party development is exciting. I think that the impression I got is that those integrations, or the way they're opening that up, will be to, I think I read somewhere, selected kind of categories first. So things like, booking a ride on Uber was one thing they mentioned, and there was a few other examples. So I don't know, and you might be able to speak to this better than I could, but I don't know if right out of the gate that open Siri third-party integration will really have a lot of bearing on the smart home. But I definitely think in the long term, it's obviously very significant for a number of reasons. Wasn't terribly surprised to not see Siri in a can. I have to say, in a way, I was happy to finally have gotten an Apple prediction right. I don't have a very good track record with predicting things about Apple. So, I finally got one of those right. We were all wrong on the over-under. We got a lot of HomeKit coverage, and I was really happy to see that. And I think just generally, the theme that I took away from it, particularly on the smart home, home technology front, is that Apple, it's taken them some time to get HomeKit up, and we've talked about that so much on the show, but we obviously don't want to rehash it here. But I think that Apple clearly demonstrated that the smart home is something they see as critical to their long-term strategic vision for the company, and I was very encouraged to see that.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. I mean, it seemed like a kind of a lot of the stuff that they mentioned at WWDC this year was to extend their platform out a little bit further and actually open it up, like you're talking about the Siri integrations. I mean, it's limited in what they can do. You're right, but it's a starting point. And like I said earlier, Apple is not the one that would rush in and say, okay, all of Siri is open. They're gonna take their time. Yep. Put a little bit out there, sprinkle a little dust, and see where it settles, and then kind of go over that direction a little bit further. That's what they do, and that's what they did with the iPad. That's what they did with the phone. I mean, the phone. Let's leave that one out. That was an edge case, but that's what they've done with all of their products. They've sat back, watched how the market changed, and adapted, and that's been their power as a company. But what I'm really excited about are all the devices that'll have the ability to do home automation right out of the box later this year.
Yeah, it's great. Well, let's move on. If anyone is listening and didn't happen to catch last week's episode, it was an in-depth conversation about WWDC, and I would encourage you to go check that out. If you haven't listened to it already, HomeTech.fm/116 would be that episode, and I thought you and Richard did a great job. Next story here we want to touch on, we got just a couple more before we get into our interview with Keenan. And that is a bunch of rumors circulating about iControl being acquired. And this is interesting story on a number of fronts. We don't do security in-house at the company that I work for, so I'm not immersed necessarily in my day-to-day in sort of the intricacies of the different security companies and how monitoring prices are affected and things like that. But, iControl is clearly a very big name, and two very large names looking to make an acquisition, which I think is kind of interesting. We're not talking about one company here that's looking to acquire them. According to the rumors, Alarm.com and Comcast would both be involved in the acquisition. And so Comcast would be looking, as the rumors indicate, at iControl's Zigbee platform, which is called Converge. And then Alarm.com would be looking at a Z-Wave, the Connect platform it's called, as well as Piper, which is that do-it-yourself home automation product we talked about, a couple of times way back, but we really haven't talked much about them and haven't heard much on that front. So interesting story, definitely one to watch, and I think has a lot of implications, obviously in the broader connected home space, but I think also for the security dealers in our audience in terms of iControl not being a viable option anymore necessarily for maybe the independent type of dealers that they might have gone after to kind of keep those monitoring prices down. And I think Alarm.com is charging a little bit more on the premium side, but I'd be curious to hear your thoughts about that, Seth.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've heard too, that Alarm.com charges a little bit more than some of the other companies. But, honestly, I've used them for years. I think they have a more robust and easy to use service than some of the other ones that are out there that are just, some of them are charging the same amount as Alarm.com and offering so much less of a user experience. And with me, it's all about the end user experience. I really don't care about the back end, and
right.
That's our job. But a lot of dealers and a lot of security integrators want to take an easy route and not learn new equipment when it comes out. Let's be honest. That's what our industry is famous for. Is like grabbing one line and sticking to it until it runs into the ground. I've seen that happen so many times, and some of the things that come out, I just scratch. Like, why do security panels look the way they do these days? Makes no sense to me at all. But from a business standpoint, it makes absolute sense. They'd only have to train the installer once. And for the next 20 years, they can install the same panel. And that doesn't make any sense in today's world at all. So, I think the security crowd is going to have to wake up and, rub their eyes a little bit and move on, because these bigger companies like Alarm.com and ADT Pulse and iControl and, even the service providers like Comcast and are going to be able to come in with a much more rich user experience for roughly the same price, and they're going to compete on the user experience, whereas you're competing on product that was made 20 years ago. Like that's that's not a win-win situation,
right?
By any means.
Yeah, so definitely a lot of implications. A lot of this is big business stuff that we don't spend a lot of time talking about here on the show. So unless, Seth, you have anything else you wanted to add to that, I think we'll move on. Definitely just a story that we'll be keeping an eye on. Like I said, it's all really rumors at this point.
Nope, it's all good for me. We don't like to talk about business because we don't care too much about it. We like the tech stuff, right?
yeah, end users, and you got it. So let's move on here. We did see some stories circulating this week about a new Bluetooth 5 specification that's going to be coming out, and that has a couple of exciting things about it. Bluetooth is clearly a technology that a lot of people see as poised to really have a very central role in the smart home moving forward, and I think there are a lot of great arguments for that, and I definitely fall in that camp. I think it's obviously ubiquitous already with its presence in cell phones, and has a lot of benefits in terms of its low power usage and things like that. And so this spec, the Bluetooth 5 specification, increases the range allegedly by 4 times. So that's obviously a very big increase. Data speeds are doubling, and then the interesting one that I saw, I was trying to wrap my brain around a little bit, is expanded broadcast messaging. And my understanding of the implications of this as it relates to an actual scenario in the smart home is that will allow for better micro-location with some of the things that I was reading about, as well as just allowing more ability for common devices in your home, appliances, for instance, things like dishwashers or laundry machines, to really leverage Bluetooth in order to send alerts and information maybe to your smartphone. Hey, it's time to change the filter, or your laundry's done, or whatever it is. So some interesting implications there. And I think that Bluetooth is clearly one to watch.
Yeah, I was thinking about this today. I was actually listening to a show called Triangulation, which is an older Twit network show that has Leo Laporte and usually brings on a guest. And the gentleman, I can't remember his name right now, but he was with Zigbee and talking about where he thought the one of the questions Leo asked was where he thought that the road was going to be. Like, are we going to end up with 20 different standards? Is there just going to be one? And of course, he's coming from Zigbee, but he had a pretty good answer. And I'll put the link in the show note. It's a pretty good show. But one of the things he said kind of got me thinking, like, I think he said something along the lines, we may end up with 1 or 2, but they'll be set up for different use cases. And Bluetooth is definitely a different use case. With the low power that it can do, you could stick a Bluetooth transmitter receiver in a battery powered device, and it can last for years sometimes. And that's because it's fairly low powered, fairly lightweight. You can't do that with the other stuff that, like lighting control. You wouldn't be able to stick a Bluetooth piece into the light because of range issues, and maybe this particular spec solves it. But I think Bluetooth and possibly Zigbee are going to be one of those two that just kind of standards that are going to last. I'm not gonna make an over under on it, but I think Bluetooth. NFC is very similar, but Bluetooth's built into every single phone. Like every single phone has Bluetooth. So I think it's definitely a standard to watch in home automation. As much as it, to you and me, it probably doesn't make that much sense because there's no mesh networking, and that's not even included in this. That's like later on, they're still talking about it. But it's affordable, it's easy to install, and I guess it's easy. It must be easy to work with because it ends up everywhere, and it's so pervasive. It just may be simply because of the fact it's just so pervasive, it ends up in the smart home. Yeah.
Yep. Very true. And I'm glad you mentioned that. That was one thing I did want to point out. You were talking about Zigbee, and Bluetooth still does not have the ability to mesh. I think that I know for me, when I initially saw, hey, the new Bluetooth spec is out, I assumed initially that mesh would be part of that because we've been hearing a lot of rumors and speculation about Bluetooth finally having that ability to extend its range by acting as a mesh network. That is not part of Bluetooth 5, but it does look like they're still promising later this year or early next. And I do think that'll be a very big deal for Bluetooth, and it'll negate a lot of the limitations that people cite when they talk about where Bluetooth doesn't work in the smart home. And so clearly a story worth keeping an eye on. Let's move on here. We've got another entrant into the hub game, Seth.
Yeah, I'm going to have to give a shout out to our friend of the show, Patrick Pendergrass, who let us know on our Slack channel, the Hub, that there is a new hub from Nokia.
Oh, there it is. Okay. I wasn't sure if you were going to hold off on the bell or not. There was a little bit of debate before we hit record.
No. We're keeping it.
Now, I think this thing is not. We're not going to spend a ton of time on it. It does look like it's very aimed at service providers, so a white label solution. So you won't be necessarily seeing the Nokia brand on it. This is something that Nokia is going to try to sell to cable providers, for instance. And I have to say that of all the things that I read about this, I'm very impressed with their ability to choose a name for the product.
Yes, the 7368 ISAM ONTG-240 WZ-A will be a great Internet of Things hub. I'm pretty sure for the home.
Now, I'm just curious when they're going to come out with the 7368 ISAM ONTG-240 WZ-B, because that's the one I really want.
Well, yeah, I mean, you may as well wait till the 7468 ISAM ONTG. Oh my gosh.
All right, we should stop.
Yeah, this press release that accompanied the story is so corporate speak. It's ridiculous. It doesn't really give you very much details. It just kind of says a couple of things they're trying to do and how great it's going to be. But yeah, the model number of the ONT definitely caught my eye at the bottom. It looks like a cool piece. Don't get me wrong. It does look like a pretty cool piece. Like they're building in Z-Wave and Zigbee into the optical network terminal that's typically outside of the house. Sometimes they end up in the garage. But this is kind of moving the smart home. We talk about it moving into the router. This is almost moving it into like one step before the router.
The modem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting. I couldn't find any real specifics on what makes this offering super unique. I think, the architecture of it, like you alluded to, this is an ONT that has Zigbee, and I think you said Z-Wave incorporated right into it. So that's interesting. Obviously, some interesting implications there, and I think it's something that service providers will take a look at. But that whole game is getting so convoluted now with service providers bringing their platforms in-house, or I'm sure they've got a bunch of different options on that front. So kind of another big business story that I don't feel qualified to speak to the details on, but feels to me like my gut feeling, Seth, when I first read this was it was kind of a Me Too product.
Well, it is Nokia, which is owned by Microsoft, I think, or maybe parts of Nokia is owned by Microsoft. But they're a huge company, and they do products really, really well. So I'm sure this is probably one of the best that you could buy on the market. They are not known for poor engineering, and
that is true. Yeah.
So I'm sure this and whatever subsequent product does come out of this platform that they're putting together will be pretty amazing. But like you're saying, Me Too, I think it's just they're kind of late. Like they should have been on board with this a while back, and maybe it's, I don't know. Is this going to go to a completely different vertical than we talk about? But I think it's just almost like it's too late to jump in.
Yep. Time will tell. We got one last story here, and then we're going to jump into our interview with Keenan Lewis from Ubiquiti. And the last story that we wanted to touch on is that it does look like Logitech is doing some beta testing with an Amazon Alexa integration, which I think is pretty cool. We always talk about control of the media room and control of the living room TV as being one of these outside, almost an edge case in a lot of the conversations about smart home control these days, when, which is hard, I think, for me to wrap my brain around, because so much of what we do as professional integrators is centered around audiovisual and control of the TVs and music systems. But we have to remind ourselves that really that's been still the purview, by and large, of home technology professionals. And on the DIY side, we're starting to see more of it, but it's not quite as prevalent as I think the market needs it to be. And so anytime I see a story about an integration that will allow something like this, in this example, voice control of the TV or media room, I think is pretty cool. Yeah,
and Logitech is probably one of the better remote. I see this like gritting my teeth together because I had so many problems with Logitech in the past, but like with all indications is like the current product line is much better than what I ran into back when I installed so many of their remotes and got no support on them and had to basically throw them away in front of the clients and sell them new remotes. But you live and you learn. Again, don't sell Logitech remotes and don't park in the fire lanes. Yeah. So, but we get a lot of feedback on these, and people say they're great. And I've purchased some here and there for family members along the way, and they were able to set them up and program them. So it's definitely a do-it-yourself product. As a side note, those are all dead as well. And I had to fix them when I went back for Christmas.
I'll mention that real quick here.
Yeah. Anyway, from what all I get, this is really cool, and I'm glad to see that there's going to be more integration with voice control and the Alexa platform moving forward, because this is really cool when you start taking AV and introducing it in. I just wonder how it's going to work in the end. Again, it's the user experience. We've talked about that a couple of times, and I wonder how that's going to manifest itself with the Logitech system.
Yeah, so I'm not super familiar with Logitech. I know that the little bit that I did read about this integration was that Amazon Alexa will be able to trigger activities, and so that would be hey Alexa, turn on the TV, I guess. My question, I doubt that this ability exists, but maybe it does. If Logitech has the ability, like, would I be able to come in and say, hey Alexa, turn on ESPN or turn on ABC or whatever? Like, could you call a specific channel? I'm not sure. That to me would be much more useful than just saying, hey, watch TV.
Right.
But if it's not there yet, then I'm sure ultimately that's where this is all headed. But that was one question to me when I was thinking through the obvious potential use cases for this sort of integration.
Or for music, you say, hey, play some Pandora, and then it may try and play something, Pandora on the Amazon Music platform. I don't know. Amazon is very limited in what it can do right now, which is good and bad. Like it's kind of like training wheels on it for both us and the platform. But I don't know. I'm curious to see how all this starts to work and flesh out and how well it works in the end too. Like you said, it's not that useful if you say, hey, turn on the TV and it's on Nickelodeon from the morning. Right. And then you really wanted it to be on like the news, CBS or whatever at night, evening news or something. So yeah,
and it doesn't really strike me as an Amazon limitation. It would be more of like a question on the Logitech side. Like, it could be. Yeah, that's true. But specifically, I guess I was thinking, and I'm sure somebody listening can help us out with this, is can you make a specific channel part of an activity? So could you come in and say, watch ESPN?
Right.
So
yeah.
Curious about that. We'll have to look into it. But this is all beta, very early, and so we'll keep an eye on it. But let's move on here, Seth. Let's jump into our interview. We had Keenan Lewis on from Ubiquiti. Like I teased at the beginning of the show, this is really a conversation focused on their new Amplifi product line, which is the Ubiquiti's really first entrance into the consumer market. They're a company that has been very well regarded and well known for their efforts and products in the enterprise. This is the first time they've really taken aim at the consumer market, and we were excited to get Keenan on and talk about the Amplifi line. So let's go ahead and get started. Hey, Keenan, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time to join us. I understand you're out in New York hustling around and spreading the word about Amplifi, and we're definitely, like I said, happy to have you spending some time with us, and looking forward to diving in and talking more about what the team at Ubiquiti has going on. But before we get into that, why don't you give our audience a bit of a personal introduction and maybe talk about some of your background as well?
Sure, no problem. My name's Keenan Lewis, and I am Vice President of Business Development for Ubiquiti Labs. My main focus is marketing and media relations for our consumer electronics line.
Great. Well, most of our listeners, I'm sure, are very familiar. We've talked about Ubiquiti quite a bit over the couple of years that we've been doing the show. But just in case we've got anybody listening who is not familiar with Ubiquiti, just give us the overview of the company and talk about sort of the origins and how you guys got started.
Sure. We were founded over 10 years ago by our CEO, Robert Pera. We went public 5 years ago and are publicly traded under UBNT on the NASDAQ. We've shipped over 38 million Wi-Fi radios for the enterprise and service provider networks all around the globe. We do much of our business overseas. And up until last week, we operated exclusively in those broadband and enterprise markets. Last month we announced Ubiquiti Labs, which is the Consumer Electronics Innovation Laboratory division of the company, and under that division, we announced our first consumer product, which we call Amplifi.
And that's what we're here to talk about tonight. I'm familiar with many of the other Ubiquiti lines, like Unify in particular, and some of the video products. But what's Amplifi? What do you guys have going on with that product?
Yeah, we're really excited about Amplifi. It's our home connectivity system to kind of solve the chronic Wi-Fi challenges of the modern connected home. We looked at a few things when we evaluated the market, and when we did that, we kept coming back to three major themes. Consumers often lack options for fast, reliable Wi-Fi. Wireless networks are typically hard to install and also hard to troubleshoot. And then consumers were lacked. They had very limited options and features in their, with their home wireless networks. So with Amplifi, that first problem, for us was really easy to solve. Like I kind of mentioned, given the history of the company, we've been delivering wireless solutions all over the world for 10 years. So for us, really the biggest challenge we faced was to package our existing technologies into an attractive product that consumers would be happy and proud to display in their home. We're really happy with how Amplifi's industrial design came out, and we were able to disguise really powerful antennas in what we think is the smallest footprint possible.
So we've talked a little bit about Ubiquiti as a company, and you guys have a very proven track record in the enterprise side of things. And I'm curious, Keenan, to get your thoughts on why the consumer market. Why do you guys feel that Ubiquiti is uniquely positioned, and what kind of asset do you bring to the consumer market versus sticking straight to the enterprise?
That's a great question, and I think when we made the decision to jump into the consumer market, there are a few interesting trends that that we noticed. The first, is pretty, I think will be pretty obvious to a lot of your listeners, and that's just that the home is becoming ever more connected. A family of four can easily have 20 to 30 connected devices when you start adding smartphones and tablets, laptops, desktops, IoT devices, smart appliances. The numbers are large now, and they're increasing all the time. And you have a situation where you have all these incredible devices that require fast, reliable Wi-Fi, and you have service providers that are offering all these premium packages for high-speed data rates. And we found that the bottleneck in this chain became the wireless router. We found that often in these homes didn't have a router that could support the data rates that they were paying for, or support the awesome devices that they've spent invested a lot of money in. So that was the first thing. The second, from a business perspective, we look back at kind of the history of home wireless connectivity, and if you walked into an electronics retailer 10 years ago, you would see laptops and computers priced in the multiple hundreds or thousands of dollars. And you'd walk over to the wireless router section and you'd see wireless routers at $50, $40, even $20. It was really just a race to the bottom. And from a business perspective, that wasn't, a very attractive market, to jump into. But, circle back to today and you walk into that same consumer electronics store and, a laptop, you can buy a laptop for $150, $200. And you walk to the wireless routing section and you see this trend of wireless routers and, home connectivity systems becoming more and more expensive. And people are willing to pay a premium, for their networks because it's become such an integral part of the home environment. And so now all of a sudden, and that's based on, what we talked about with the, the increase of connected, smart connected devices in the home. And so now that becomes, an attractive marketplace to play in.
Yeah, you're singing our tune. I mean, Jason and I are both custom integrators. So, I mean, we interact directly with the end users, and we can come across many, many different types of Wi-Fi access points, whether they're provided by, the internet service provider, cable company, or the client brings it in themselves, or in some cases we're supplying the access points, and it's all over the map. I mean, it's really something that is it seems like it's one of those things that's easy to set up, but when you get really down to it, we all have these little dead spots in our house that are just frustrating to no end, because you have decent equipment in the house, but then you get over, kind of back towards the back bedroom, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in a dead spot that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So there are a couple of different products that have come onto the market that are similar to Amplifi, like the Eero comes to mind. But you guys are a little bit different in the fact that you have a touch screen on the front. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. The touchscreen was something that we wanted to incorporate to allow the user to interact with the product and kind of get real-time feedback. So, one of the primary uses for the touchscreen is for installation. So, with a combination of downloading the app, which is available for iOS or Android. And using the setup wizard on the LCD screen, setup and installation is really, really easy and painless. On top of that, each system is packaged with 2 pre-paired mesh points, and those are very easily installed without any additional wires. They can be plugged into any electrical socket, and they're immediately paired and extend the coverage of your network.
Great. Yeah, the system architecture makes a lot of sense, and I know that in a number of the homes that Seth and I will work in, particularly in the retrofit environment, we may not have the sort of hardwired infrastructure that we'd typically like to use traditional Wi-Fi access points, and so the idea of wireless mesh, I think, is obviously a no-brainer. We're seeing some more progress on that front in terms of different solutions coming to market. And I have to say, I was very excited to see Ubiquiti come up with a solution. I, like Seth, have some familiarity with Ubiquiti products over the years, and I know that in the home technology space in general, Ubiquiti is a very well-regarded company and one that a lot of people look to for the performance and low cost. And I'm always amazed at the kind of performance you guys can deliver at a pretty amazing price point. And I think this product looks like it holds a lot of promise. You alluded to it there, and what the system is made of. Essentially, if I'm a consumer and I buy it, just talk about that specifically for a second. If somebody goes and purchases this, what all does the unboxing, installation, what's included, and just talk a little bit about what that process looks like in terms of using the LCD screen to set it up.
Yeah, absolutely. So out of the box, each Amplifi system comes with the base unit and the 2 pre-paired mesh points. The only wires that are in the box are the power source and the Ethernet cord. And they'll also, out of the box, the package also includes a quick start guide that, along with the setup wizard on the LCD screen and the smart app, again, just really make installation in a very quick, very painless. So I mean, right out of the box, you take the base unit, you plug it into a power source, you connect it to your modem, install the app, a few clicks of the LCD screen, you plug in your mesh points, and you're connected to the web. It's really that simple.
I like it. I know you guys have a few different versions or flavors of this product. Can you talk about those?
Yeah. So the product is available. There are three SKUs. The Amplifi Standard is available for retail price of $199. You can upgrade at a cost of $299 to Amplifi Long Range. And with that SKU, you'll actually double your coverage up to 20,000 square feet. And at $349 Amplifi High Density, you'll maintain your extended coverage of up to 20,000 square feet, but you also, double your, max throughput to 5.25 gigabits per second of cumulative bandwidth.
Very cool. Very cool. And those wireless extenders they come two in a box, right?
Correct. They come two in a box, prepared. There will be the ability to add additional mesh points to your network, up to 10. That will be available very shortly after we begin shipping, but not at the exact moment.
Oh, that was going to be my next question, because I've been plenty of places that need a little bit more help, and being able to pair additional extenders onto this device would be very helpful. Let's talk a little bit about the app. I'm kind of familiar with it really just came out. The Unify line had an app that was released not too long ago that you can go in and set up and what do they call it, manage a system and adopt the system onto a server. Is this similar? How this works? How this setup works? Like everything is done through an app?
Yeah, all the advanced features for Amplifi are located on the app. It allows you to set up a guest network or allow guest access to your network. You can get detailed client reporting. You can perform speed tests on your network, and you can also diagnose issues. And you can also access 24/7 live in-app support directly from your phone.
That's great. I think that's super important, and that was definitely one of my questions is what sort of remote diagnostics. Like I said, Ubiquiti tends to be a line that a lot of our listeners really hold in high regard in terms of its performance, and I know a lot of people use it in home technology installations, and so we're keeping a keen eye towards Amplifi, and was wondering if you could speak specifically, is this a product that you see as a good fit potentially for a home technology professional who might be deploying multiple networks and need a way to monitor them? Or is this really, would you say, more of a product geared for the end user primarily?
Yeah, this is really a product for the end user. This is a product that we've really tried to simplify and gear towards someone with very little technical background. We're trying to provide them with the performance and power that we're known for, the reliability, but something that's really something. We want this to be a home connectivity system that you could gift to your grandmother for a holiday, and to have the expectation that she could set it up and without any issues.
Cool. Yeah, that's always my measure.
That is, Seth's measure.
It's exactly what I say on the show. I've got to be able to send it to my parents or my grandparents and have them set up whatever technology gizmo device it is. And if they can get through it, then I know it's got a pretty good life ahead of it. One thing you touched on briefly, and we've kind of talked about it a little bit here and there, but is that guest network. A lot of people find them to be kind of important, but what would you say that Ubiquiti does different here with Amplifi, with the guest network. Why does Ubiquiti find that to be an important feature to put into this product?
I think it just really solves a common problem that people often find when trying to share their networks. You may have a situation where you have, here, I'll give an example. I think, in my past life before Ubiquiti, I would have people over to my home, and in my attempt to share my Wi-Fi, I would have to dig through, my closet and find an obscure piece of paper with a passcode that is about 27 digits long and different cases, and I would have to give this to each one of my guests, and have them try to fight through connecting to my wireless network. With our solution, it's really a few clicks to log on. You're on the app, and with a few taps of the screen, you are allowing access to your network for a specific number of clients, or specific number of users for a specified amount of time before the network tightens back up and locks out.
Yeah, and so I think that was one of the specific things that I saw mentioned a few times in the literature that I saw, is that it's a sort of a timed access, and I read into that maybe that was something Ubiquiti was doing that was a little unique in terms of opening up that guest access for just a specified period of time. Would you say that that's an accurate statement?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've through even our beta testers, we found different applications that people have. Some people have restricted access from their password, to the network, and are offering internet access to their children through the guest network. So it's kind of another way of just controlling, child's access to the network, and how much time they spend on the network or on the internet.
Well, that makes sense. One of the other things that we're reading about is a possible future roadmap of the Amplifi system being a home automation controller. What can you say, if anything, to that?
Yeah, we're excited about the future of Amplifi and the future of Ubiquiti Labs. So we're really really evaluating the home automation smart home space, and what we've concluded is that the foundation of that must be strong, reliable, and fast Wi-Fi. So, that is what we plan to be the hub of, a series of products in that, that home automation space, that I'll be excited to, come back and speak with you about in the near future.
Yeah, please do. Definitely keep us in mind. That was something that certainly piqued my interest when I was reading the press releases and the coverage about it, that there seemed to be an indication that perhaps this was really just the beginning of some new consumer initiatives and potentially home automation and Internet of Things initiatives on the part of Ubiquiti. And like I've said a couple of times, I've had all great experiences with your products there at the company, and really excited to see where you guys take this. So speaking of that, what is next for the team at Ubiquiti? What are you guys getting excited about these days?
We're just really excited about Amplifi. Again, being our first, dive into the consumer market. We're really excited to, get in front of consumers, have them learn a little bit about us and, our expertise and performance. And then again, I think, we've got some ambitions to dive further into the home automation IoT space. And, I can't wait to share that with you when a little further down the road.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I usually ask if where does somebody want to find out more, but I think we forgot one major thing right here. And I know we covered the products, but we didn't cover their prices. How much, if I wanted to buy an Amplifi, how much would it cost? And I don't know, I think on the website it says they're pre-ordering now. Do you have like an expected ship date as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we have the 3 SKUs. Our standard version of Amplifi home Wi-Fi system is available for $199. you can upgrade to the long range version for $299, and our premium version Amplifi high density is available for $349. We're accepting pre-orders now, and we'll be ready to ship within a few weeks.
Oh, awesome! That's great news. If somebody wanted to go out and pre-order one of those, where would you say they could do that and find out more about Amplifi?
Yeah, absolutely. Currently, we're exclusively accepting pre-orders through our website, www.amplifi.com. And it's a beautiful website. There's a lot of information about the product. So we encourage anyone interested in purchasing or learning more about Ubiquiti Labs and Amplifi to definitely check us out there.
Great. Well, once again, Keenan, we really appreciate you taking the time to come on and join us. And if anybody listening is curious about any of the specific things that we talked about, you can go over to HomeTech.fm/117, and we'll have all the links and pertinent information included in the show notes. So once again, we want to thank you, Keenan. Appreciate you taking the time to come on, and we'll look forward to reconnecting with you soon.
Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate your time.
All right. Take care.